12 years might seem like an eternity, but in the world of gaming, it's just a blink of an eye. Over the last decade, we've seen genres transform, legendary studios vanish, and titles that once blew our minds settle into the history books. While many games vanish into obscurity, a select few rise up to define an entire era of play. Today, we're looking back at the past 12 years to celebrate the most iconic and unforgettable masterpieces ever created.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Between your eyes.
Okay, tough guy.
If I start shooting, it's over for you.
That one's worth
Red Dead Redemption 2 is the kind of game that, the further we move away from its release, the more it starts to feel like a miracle. Even years later, very few open-world games come close to matching its level of ambition, detail, and realism. This isn't just a large map to explore, it's a living, breathing world where every town, forest, and character feels like it exists independently of the player. At its core, the game delivers a slow, emotional, and deeply human story that breaks away from traditional video game pacing, choosing instead to focus on immersion and atmosphere. That realism comes with intentional design choices that can feel heavy or slow at times, especially in movement and combat. But those choices exist for a reason: to make the player truly inhabit the world rather than rush through it. The quiet moments are where the game shines the most, whether it's riding through the wilderness, sitting around a campfire, or simply observing how the world changes around Arthur Morgan. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just an open-world game, it's a carefully crafted experience built on detail, patience, and emotional depth, and it stands as one of the most ambitious games ever created.
Your twice as soaked as me right now.
You're the only one left! Give it up now!
I'm unarmed.
Give me one reason that I should put a bullet through your head.
Well, all right. Under the pillow on top of my bed. Just take it and get it.
Elden Ring.
For how else is a champion or a lord to be born?
Elden Ring marked the moment From Software truly stepped into mainstream gaming while still refusing to compromise what makes their games unique. It took everything the studio had refined over years of Soulsborne design and placed it into a massive open world without losing its sense of mystery, danger, or discovery. What makes Elden Ring so powerful isn't just its scale, but the way it constantly surprises the player, often in completely unspoken ways. One moment you're exploring familiar ground, and the next you're discovering an underground world that feels just as large and detailed as the surface above it. The game doesn't rely on traditional storytelling or hand-holding. Instead, it builds its narrative through exploration, environmental design, and hidden lore scattered across its world. Even its difficulty becomes part of the experience. Making every discovery feel earned rather than given. Elden Ring is less about following a story and more about collecting moments. Strange, beautiful, and often overwhelming moments that stay with you long after you stop playing. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
What the? Close your eyes. Hit him!
The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, released in 2015, still stands as one of the most influential RPGs ever made, and remarkably, it doesn't feel outdated even years later. This was a massive leap forward for CD Projekt Red, transforming them from a talented studio into one of the most respected names in the industry. What makes The Witcher 3 so special isn't just its size, but the consistency of its quality across almost everything it does. The world feels rich and grounded, filled with morally complex characters, meaningful choices, and side quests that often rival main storylines in depth and emotional weight. While the combat can feel a bit unrefined compared to pure action games, it fits the slower, deliberate nature of the experience and never takes away from the overall immersion. From its writing to its world design, the game set a new standard for open-world RPGs and forced the entire industry to step up. Even today, it remains one of the clearest examples of how storytelling and world-building can elevate a game into something unforgettable. God of War 2018.
What are you doing? Now his guard is up. Only fire. Only fire. When I tell you to fire.
I'm sorry.
Do not be sorry. Be better.
God of War 2018 is a complete reinvention of a franchise that was once defined by fast, chaotic action and extreme brutality, transforming it into a more grounded, emotional, and story-driven experience. Instead of Greek mythology and rage-fueled destruction, the game shifts to Norse mythology and places a much stronger focus on fatherhood, responsibility, and personal growth. Kratos is no longer just a force of destruction, but a character shaped by his past, trying to guide his son Atreus while struggling to suppress what he used to be. The entire game is presented as a continuous, single-camera experience, with no traditional cuts, which makes the journey feel seamless and immersive from start to finish. Combat has been redesigned around the Leviathan axe, offering a slower but heavier and more deliberate system that emphasizes timing, positioning, and strategy. The relationship between Kratos and Atreus evolves throughout the game, becoming the emotional core that drives both the story and gameplay. God of War 2018 succeeds not just as a reboot, but as a complete redefinition of what the series can be, blending cinematic storytelling with deeply satisfying action design.
Close your heart to their desperation. Close your heart to their suffering. The road ahead is long and unforgiving. No place for a boy. You must be a warrior.
Bloodborne. Bloodborne is widely regarded as one of From Software's most atmospheric and artistically powerful games, even if it's not the most technically polished entry in their catalog. Set in the gothic, nightmare-infused city of Yharnam, the game builds a world that feels both beautiful and horrifying at the same time, where decay, disease, and cosmic terror are woven into every corner of its design. Unlike the slower, defensive style of other Souls games, Bloodborne pushes players into an aggressive combat system that rewards risk-taking, quick reactions, and constant pressure on enemies. Healing is tied to combat itself, encouraging players to stay engaged rather than retreat, which makes every encounter feel intense and personal. As the game progresses, its story slowly shifts from gothic horror into something far more abstract and cosmic, revealing layers of lore that are deliberately fragmented and open to interpretation. The environment design and enemy aesthetics are some of the most striking in gaming, creating a sense of dread that never fully disappears, even in moments of calm. Bloodborne stands out not just as a challenging action game, but as a haunting experience that blends gameplay, art direction, and storytelling into something deeply unforgettable. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
表を上げよ。くさび丸、そなたの刀だ。我が忍びよ。
Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is where From Software completely reshaped its own formula, moving away from slower, defensive combat and pushing players into a faster, more aggressive style built around precision and rhythm. Instead of traditional stamina-based survival, the game revolves around posture, deflection, and timing, turning every encounter into a tense back-and-forth duel rather than a drawn-out battle of attrition. Set in a stylized version of feudal Japan, it follows the journey of a shinobi tasked with protecting his young lord. But the real story is told through its brutal encounters and the mastery required to overcome them. The combat feels almost like a rhythm system where learning enemy patterns and responding perfectly becomes the key to victory. Unlike previous From Software games, stealth also plays a more active role, giving players different ways to approach situations instead of relying purely on direct confrontation. It's punishing, precise, and often unforgiving, but every victory feels earned in a way few games can replicate. Sekiro doesn't just challenge the player, it demands mastery, and in doing so, creates one of the most satisfying combat systems in modern gaming. Cyberpunk 2077.
Come on! I gotta do this all myself!
Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the clearest examples of how much the modern gaming industry has changed, especially in how games are supported after release. At launch, the game was heavily criticized for bugs, performance issues, and systems that felt unfinished, particularly on older hardware. But over time, through major updates and expansions, it transformed into a far more complete and polished experience than what originally shipped. Set in the dense, neon-lit world of Night City, the game delivers one of the most visually striking open worlds ever created, filled with verticality, detail, and atmosphere that makes the city feel alive and oppressive at the same time. The story itself is deeply personal, focusing on identity, survival, and the cost of chasing immortality in a world driven by technology and corporations. Combat and RPG systems have also evolved significantly through updates, making gunplay, cyberware, and character builds feel more impactful and flexible. While its launch reputation still lingers, the current version of Cyberpunk 2077 stands as a strong example of redemption through post-launch support, showing how a flawed release can evolve into a genuinely excellent RPG experience. Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
No!
Assassin's Creed Odyssey is where Ubisoft fully leaned into the RPG identity of the series, transforming what was once a stealth action franchise into a massive, choice-driven open-world adventure. Set during the Peloponnesian War in ancient Greece, the game offers a sprawling recreation of historical locations filled with islands, cities, and naval routes that encourage constant exploration. One of its biggest shifts is the emphasis on player agency, allowing you to choose between two protagonists and make dialogue decisions that influence quests and outcomes, something earlier Assassin's Creed games rarely attempted at this scale. The combat system is more action-focused, with ability-based skills, loot progression, and enemy scaling that push the game closer to a full RPG structure. While its size and content can sometimes feel overwhelming or repetitive, there's no denying the sheer amount of detail and effort poured into its world-building. Naval combat also returns and plays a major role in traversal and combat, adding variety to the experience. Assassin's Creed Odyssey may not appeal to everyone due to its scale and departure from traditional stealth mechanics, but it represents one of the boldest evolutions in the franchise's history. Hollow Knight Silksong. Hollow Knight Silksong takes everything that made the original Hollow Knight so beloved and refines it into a faster, sharper, and more aggressive experience that feels both familiar and completely new. Centered around Hornet, the game shifts away from the slower, more methodical pacing of the first game and instead emphasizes speed, precision, and fluid movement. Every encounter feels more dynamic, with combat designed around agility and constant repositioning rather than patience and attrition. The world itself is still rich with mystery and interconnected exploration, but now it pushes the player forward with a stronger sense of momentum and challenge. Enemy design and boss fights are significantly more demanding, often requiring near-perfect timing and quick adaptation to new attack patterns. While it maintains the dark, atmospheric tone of the original, Silksong feels more focused on mastery and execution, making success feel even more rewarding. It builds on the legacy of Hollow Knight without simply repeating it, instead evolving into something that stands on its own as one of the most anticipated and ambitious indie-style Metroidvania experiences. Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is a landmark RPG that proves just how far player freedom and systemic design can be pushed without sacrificing cinematic quality or emotional storytelling. Built on the foundation of classic Dungeons & Dragons rules, it transforms tabletop-style decision-making into a fully realized digital experience where almost every action has consequences. The game gives players an extraordinary level of freedom, allowing them to approach problems in countless ways, through combat, stealth, dialogue, magic, or completely unpredictable improvisation that often leads to emergent outcomes. What makes it even more impressive is how reactive the world is, with characters remembering your choices, reacting to your behavior, and shaping the story in ways that feel genuinely personal. Despite its complexity, the game never loses its cinematic presentation, with strong performances, detailed animations, and well-written companions that bring emotional weight to every decision. Combat is deep and tactical, rewarding creativity and experimentation rather than simple optimization. Baldur's Gate 3 succeeds because it blends old-school RPG depth with modern production values, creating one of the most immersive and player-driven role-playing experiences ever made.
The brew's been chilled!
Cold, chilled, frozen.
Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Jesus. They're everywhere.
The Resident Evil 2 Remake is one of those rare projects that manages to honor a classic while completely reinventing it for a modern audience. Instead of simply recreating the original game with better graphics, Capcom rebuilt the experience from the ground up, turning it into something familiar yet entirely fresh. The shift to over-the-shoulder survival horror gives Raccoon City a more immediate and terrifying presence, making every corridor and dark room feel dangerous in a way the original only hinted at. The introduction of Mr. X as a relentless, roaming threat completely changes the pacing, forcing constant tension as you never feel truly safe, even in areas you've already cleared. Resource management, exploration, and puzzle solving all return, but now they're layered with a much stronger sense of dread and unpredictability. While a few elements from the original were cut or simplified, the overall experience benefits from a tighter, more focused design. The Resident Evil 2 Remake doesn't just modernize a classic, it redefines it, setting a new standard for how remakes should be done. NieR Automata. NieR Automata is one of those rare games that constantly shifts tone, genre, and expectations while still managing to feel emotionally coherent from start to finish. On the surface, it's an action RPG built around fast, fluid combat, but underneath that, it's a philosophical exploration of identity, purpose, and what it means to exist in a world that no longer has a clear meaning. The story follows androids 2, B, 9S, and A2 as they navigate a ruined Earth filled with machines that seem to be developing emotions, culture, and even religion of their own. What makes the game so unique is how it refuses to stay in one form. It shifts between hack-and-slash combat, bullet hell shooting segments, and even pseudo-RPG and text-driven sequences, constantly breaking player expectations. Its narrative unfolds across multiple playthroughs, each revealing new layers that completely change your understanding of earlier events. The soundtrack and atmosphere amplify the emotional weight, creating a haunting, melancholic tone that stays with you long after the credits. NieR Automata stands out because it's not just telling a story, it's questioning the value of stories, conflict, and existence itself in a way few games ever attempt.